No worries there. Are we good? Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We are calling our Ramsey County discussion with our beloved Congresswoman to order. We're going to start just by doing a round of introductions, especially because, well, you know, but we have new commissioners. It's really exciting, and we like to make sure we recognize. So I'll start. I am Trista Mattis-Castillo, Chair of the Ramsey County Board.
Welcome, Congresswoman. I'm Mike Chong, District 6.
Victoria Reinhardt, District 7, and I'm Vice Chair of the County Board.
Rafael Ortega, District 5.
Nicole Fretham, District 1.
Good afternoon, Mary Jo McGuire, District 2. Rena Moran, Commissioner, District 4.
Send all complaints. Ryan O'Connor, County Manager.
Yeah, and then we're going to do introductions in the room so you also know who's behind you.
Okay.
So we'll go this way. Do you want to start?
Jerry Oso, Aide to Commissioner Ortega.
Lydia Dema, County Manager.
April Benny, Human Resources.
Policy and Plan.
Mike Erlinson, Federal Government Relations for Ramsey County. Good to be here.
Happy to be.
Reed, I'm a Division Manager with Recycling and Energy within our Public Health Department.
Good afternoon, Sarah Holly, Director of St. Lawrence.
Jennifer, Deputy County Manager, Economic Growth and Community.
Karen Francois, Deputy County Manager for Information and Public Records. Wednesday, I'm the Director of Communications and Government Relations.
Scott Williams, Deputy County Manager. Darren Tobles, Victoria Reinhardt's office.
I'm the Aide to Commissioner. With Aide to
Jennifer Aurora, Director of Government Relations. Yeah.
And who are you?
And I'm Josh Straka, Staff to Congresswoman McCollum.
I've been my district director for years, and Bill has kind of reconfigured his job assignments to fit with family and other things. And Josh was gracious enough knowing what the job really all entails. So we're thrilled to have him.
Excellent. Well, welcome to you both, and thank you, Congresswoman, for coming and spending time with us. We always appreciate your partnership. It's a conversation, not a formal agenda meeting, but a conversation. And so we thought maybe we'd let you open with remarks about what does the session look like for you, what does Congress look like for you, and then we'll share some of our priorities and how we can partner.
That's great. Well, it's good to meet with you in Washington, D.C. It's good to meet with you here, and it's great when I meet with you in your district areas. And I really like getting out. So once the ice is gone and, it's safe to walk outside, reach out to Josh and my office. And as Elizabeth pointed out, she's going to be kind of your direct point of contact. I like to get out in the district and look at some of the projects and meet some of the constituents that you're serving, that we serve together. Mm-hmm. So, what's it like this year in Congress? Well, I'm in the minority. I've served in the minority, and I've served in the majority, but I've never served in chaos before. It took us 4 days to get a speaker, and one person at any given time can, to him being Speaker of the House, and start a procedure to have him removed, which means I don't know how many more ballots, because the majorities are that tight. Right now, we're in the process of setting ratios for our committees. The ratios are kind of almost an even. They have a tighter margin than we did when we were in the majority. So it's interesting to see what they're going to do with the ratios on the committees. So far, they've kind of left them alone. The Appropriations Committee, we have a lot of new Republican members on. Some of them who have made it very clear that they never vote for spending bills. So that's kind of our job, right, is to get the money that has been collected in revenue to make sure that the federal government runs effectively and efficiently for the taxpayers, but also to get money out to our partners. And you're one of our partners. And you're one of the partners that does a lot of things without getting a lot of credit for the work that you do or for the work that you absorb when we shortchange you. Commissioner McGuire and I were talking in Washington about what happens with you know, the prison population and that their lack of access to health care, even their own health care sometimes. And they haven't been convicted of anything at times. And so you're picking up the tab, the citizens of Ramsey County are. That's not how it should be. So, I'm here to learn about, you know, our way to work together on that. But, I think it's going to be, I had this conversation with, some of the 4th District legislators last week. I think we're very fortunate that the state of Minnesota, has had, been able to run surpluses in the light of what's going on with this economy. But those surpluses are only a gasp away from this economy taking another downturn. And I'm very concerned with the Republicans' refusal to do the debt ceiling, which is, you know, the debt ceiling's been happening since there's been a Congress.
Right.
And the debt just means like, oh, we owe this much money, it's all past spending, none of it's new projected spending, it's all past spending. It's like, okay, we spent this much money, Treasury, we need to pay it, so we tell Treasury to pay it. The Freedom Caucus, who held up the speaker's election for 4 days, and some others are saying that they're not going to raise the debt ceiling unless we cut Social Security, we cut Medicare, we cut Medicaid, and when we start looking at entitlement programs, that puts a lot of the things that we do for Native Americans and our tribal brothers and sisters, as well as our veterans. So stay tuned. The administration will try to smooth this out for as long as we can. We have until June, but June is also when we start doing the appropriation bills. So they're going to try to, in my opinion, hold Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security hostage, along with saying that we have to do severe cuts to the spending bills. Nobody wants to run deficits. Nobody wants to leave their kids in debt. I don't want to do that either. But the rhetoric on this and harm it could bring is both very serious. So I'm from the federal government, and on that note, I'm here to try to help you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Well, we wanted to just share some of our legislative priorities with you and kind of share the good work that we're doing. It's helpful to hear kind of the lay of the land and to just help guide our work as we move forward. We have recently passed our 2023 legislative federal platform, which is before you, and I think we've sent it over as well.
I brought my copy.
Hooray, excellent.
Wow.
And of course, we're also, you know, at the same time as we're working with you, we're working with our state partners. On the state level, we have 3 big priorities, and that is our bonding for River's Edge. You're familiar with that project, that we're really looking at how do we grow our economic base here in Ramsey County and to make sure that our residents have the first access to the river before we do any additional development. The second is county program aid. This is our direct money that the county needs to do all the programs and services. As you know, Ramsey County being the smallest county in Minnesota, and we're the 10th densest in the country, to think about, and half of our land isn't dense as in density, not as in ignorance, but just want to clarify that. But also that, you know, about half of our land isn't taxable, and so that's the way that we fund our county programs. So we're working on county program aid at the state, and then our homeless response. And we have a big ask with the state, and I just want to say thank you again for your help on the Familiar Faces earmark. That really is going to go a long way to helping the most chronically homeless folks and make sure that we have wraparound services. Really appreciate your assistance there, and we're going to continue to do that work into the next year. And then on the federal level, kind of thinking about how do we continue to prevent youth violence and our work there with youth violence. And I know you've been a proponent and helpful in the last couple of years to think about how do we get resources and do that. And we've got some creative and innovative ways to address youth violence, as well as reforming the criminal justice system to make sure that people who are intersected actually can thrive, and we can give the corrective measures as a and then obviously improving mental health and behavioral health supports across the way. And then the other issues that you care about, like food security, housing assistance and infrastructure is really critical here. We just appreciate your work. I thought maybe we could just, open it up to a few other commissioners. Commissioner Reinhardt, as you know, has been our environmental lead, the trash queen on all good levels. And
She calls herself.
That's right, that's a compliment. And she's gonna just talk a little bit about our work as well on the Environmental and Energy Center.
Well, we are really excited about what we have been able to accomplish so far at the Recycling and Energy Center. This was a facility that was built I was there for the groundbreaking in 1985, because I worked for Commissioner Bob Orth, who was one of the architects of this. That was right after the state law was passed regarding no landfilling by 1990. Well, we see what happened with that. But anyway, our county took it seriously. We partnered with Ramsey and Washington County partnered for the Recycling and Energy Center. And then gosh, how long has it been now? Was it 2016 that we bought it? We bought the facility, and we were not even allowed to really go in, and we couldn't look at the books. We couldn't really look at the facility even. We didn't know exactly how bad it was going to be, but they had let everything go. And so we said, okay, we are going to do this better. We're going to do it more economically. We're going to make sure that we're making investments in the environmental side of things, not just same old, and just chop it up and burn it. Because although that was the technology of the time, when we built it, it was cutting edge. Well, we need to do better than that. And that's one of the promises that we made when we bought the facility, the two counties bought it, was that we're not going to just continue to do that. That is part of what we do. But we made major investments in two different things that are happening right now. We made a lot of investments even before that as far as pollution and safety and all kinds of things that needed to happen there for the city of Newport and others. But anyway, so we made an investment in two robotics systems. The one is for picking out recyclables. So there's no hand picking lines. I don't know if you've ever been to a facility. Yeah. I don't know how anybody could do that job, but anyhow, I've been to a few of them. And then the other is, and the one that we're really rolling out right now, and it's really, I think, exciting, is the organics composting, durable compostable bags, robotics pulling it out. And so it's being rolled out as far as the communities beginning the middle of this year. And then we'll have it fully functional, I think it's by 2025. In 2025, it'll be across the entire county. The bags are given to people, and they just put their recyclable, or the organics into it and throw it into their trash, and it will be picked out robotically. Now, that also means new investments in anaerobic digestion, which is one of the things that we're really looking at and needing to do. Because, again, a lot of people think, I threw away my garbage. Well, there's no such place. And so we need to figure out what to do with it from an environmental standpoint and climate change standpoint. And that is this anaerobic digestion. So we are asking for $25 million in federal grants to help us secure that technology and to be able to use that. It will be a national model. And it's something it's not new, but I mean, as far as, composting organics, but on this scale and in a facility like this, this is really cutting edge. And so we're trying to do everything that we can to, yes, you have the refuse-derived fuel facility, which does provide, the fuel, but we can do more things with the anaerobic, or the organics, and also the recyclables, because there's a lot that isn't pulled out, that we don't want people to stop doing it at home, but at the same time, we aren't foolish enough to think that it's not, any garbage can you look in, you're probably going to find an aluminum can in there. And my kids, and now my grandkids, really don't like it when I pull them out. So, so anyhow, so to me, this is really exciting. I think also, and I've been saying this at the state capitol as well, for too long, we looked at solid waste management as an issue of dealing with garbage. And I think it's time that we really put it into the perspective of part of being a solution to climate change. And so that's how come these new technologies are going to be so critically important, because we can't just continue to burn it. But saying, well, you can't do that anymore, you can't do refuse-derived fuel or mass burn or any of that, that's also not an answer, because what happens then? It goes into the land, and we don't really have landfill space for it either. So looking at it as part of the solution, I think is the most logical thing to do, because climate change, we need to take action, we need to take it now, and garbage is a big part of that. So I am hoping that we can get the 25 million in federal grants. You know that we will be documenting everything and be able to spread it throughout the country, as far as the information that we get. And we've been doing a lot of, research on different techniques or technologies that are out there in companies. So, we're poised to do some really great things in this area.
Sounds exciting,
Mm-hmm.
and, something that I've worked on, you know, the Department of Defense is huge, right? And so recycling and, waste management is a big part of what we're doing in the department. And I've been actually focusing on some of that. So aluminum, even on our bases and that, making sure that we're collecting that, because aluminum can be recycled and recycled and recycled. I know it used to be, you know, people could dig through your recycling for it. It could happen again if the price of it went up, but, I think that that's a great example that you give. The other thing I would just say is, I'm trying to work more on computers and electronics, because we have a lot of them, right? In the Department of Defense, trying to, you know, get pilot. But if you've got things that you're looking at, great. Everybody talks about these, I just made sure my cell phones were on silent. Everybody talks about these critical minerals, but nobody talks about that they're in the cell phone.
Right.
And so whether it's, you know, mining critical minerals that also tend to pollute water, with water being a critical resource itself, you know, we need to get smart on how to do that. So anything that you're working on, let us know, and we'd be happy to get, you know, I'd send a letter of support, work with the senators to add them to it, and when it's combined counties, let me know, and we'll get some delegation letters. Not the real dean of the delegation, that's Dean Phillips, but I'm the dean of the delegation.
All right, thank you.
He points that out, so I'm pretending he's right here next to me.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, and it, you know, I get really excited. I was just touring the facility in Jessup, Maryland, last week, actually, for the anaerobic digester. You know, that's the way that we're gonna be able to capture the methane and then be able to put it right into our electrical grid as well. There's huge potential in garbage, and an opportunity actually to produce revenue at some point in time as the next technology moves from methane to hydrogen. So it's something that we're really proud of in our work together with Washington County. Speaking of our work with Washington County and others, I'm gonna let Commissioner Ortega, I'll put him on the spot to just talk a little bit around our transportation work that we've got going with the, you know, he's been critical, and you were at the groundbreaking of the Gold Line.
Well, we're into, as you well know, we're into full construction with the Gold Line. I think what's important now is the Purple Line. And we're working with the city of Maplewood. We got 3 months to meet the federal guidelines. Hopefully have community interaction that the city feels good about and moving forward. We feel comfortable that we can meet the federal guidelines and hopefully be on pace with that. But we've had a couple of hiccups on the Purple Line, but that goes with almost every project there is. On the Gold Line, we've had, the Riverview Corridor, we've had hiccups really with downtown alignments between the city and us. In terms of the bridge and the confluence of the rivers with the Native American tribes, they've been wonderful partners with us. I get a monthly report of all our interactions with the Native American community, with the tribes. Positive comments from them. We get emails from them saying first time that they've dealt with a government before the fact, before a decision is made. So we're in good shape there, and also they're giving us some wiggle room with a potential bridge if we had to put in a new bridge. They've sort of alluded to they're willing to talk about the possibilities, which is a positive with those folks. So that's, I mean, that's where we are with our 3 lines. I could go more into detail. Purple line is the one that we're focusing on now because that's the one that we gotta get the job done in the next 90 days.
Outdoor knocking, hearing about the purple line in Maplewood with a lot of misinformation. A lot of misinformation, and, you know, how you compete with social media and rumors in these days is really, really difficult. And I know that you did a lot of outreach, but COVID was going on too, so there were I think a few people maybe missed opportunities or didn't understand how much. I just want to take a minute, when our office was approached, when you came and, you know, said about the bridge and, you know, there's federal components to it, and it's being on the Mississippi River, which is part of MIMRA, which is part of the National Park Service, and our Park Service has relationships with working with tribes and lists, and we offered to share it with the county. As you know, I work on Native American issues a lot in Congress. Getting their health care protected, but in case there's a government shutdown, it used to be a lot of Indian healthcare services just disappeared and shut down. It'll never happen again. But back to your point, the willingness of Ramsey County to reach out in a full-fledged partnership did not go unnoticed. And I have to say, Shakopee and some of the other tribes weren't surprised by it either, because of the way that this county government conducts itself. Will go down as historic. They are partners, and this is their land that we're on at one point in time, and so they have grave sites, ancestral, special places, and things like that. And just the fact that it was acknowledged was huge, and it means a lot to me as a legislator, but it even means more to me as a person who lives in Ramsey County, with the way that you approached it. So you guys should all be really proud.
Thank you. Thank you. That really means a lot to us, as we try to do this work. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat, but I'm going to turn it over to our county manager, who, to just talk about our work on homelessness and, moving forward and how that partnership might.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for the time today, Congresswoman. I think one of the pieces I would highlight, we've an ask in at the Capitol here right now, and one part of that ask did get funded, as the chair mentioned earlier, through the Familiar Faces piece, through federal funding, and that's deep appreciation. 5 years, $75 million is our ask in at the Capitol, and we believe we have people who now understand the seriousness of the issue and the way we are approaching it, which is homelessness is not an isolated conversation to be had. It's a conversation to have along a broader conversation about an investment. Someone wise at the St. Paul Foundation one time pulled me aside and said, it's not rocket science. Like, go back and look at investment from the state and federal government since 1970 and look at what has happened around housing insecurity. There are direct lines, and sometimes we want to make these things more complex than they really are. As the county has stood up a Housing and Redevelopment Authority, generating $11 million a year. We invested significant amounts of funding through ARPA and CARES into this work. It's going to be $100 million over just a few years that was created locally. We're asking the state for a 5-year bridge at 5 years, total of $75 million, $15 million a year that will allow us to run the expanded shelter program, 200 beds above what we've otherwise been able to operationally support while we see the housing investments come to fruition. I think I would just end on 2 pieces. There is not enough money at any level right now for affordable housing, even after these historic investments, and if more money comes, we will continue to prioritize and invest it, particularly starting at the 30% area median income level, which has been a focus of our work, and I see the new chair of our HRA nodding along as a part of that. And the more money we get, the less likely we are to ever find ourselves in these scenarios again, and the more aggressively we get the money, the more we can make that 5-year timeline no longer than 5 years. It's going to take 5 years to ramp up, and we're going to continue to work on emergency shelter and homelessness money in the meantime. But we see the difference. And so I'll end by saying we got $7 million in reallocated money from the governor's office when nothing passed at the end of last session. Last phone call they made. deeply appreciative, but we needed 15. And so we had to have the amount of time this year we could run the expanded shelter. We shut down when it was warm, and then we reopened when it got cold again to prioritize these winter months to get us to next May. This summer, downtown, on our trains, we saw the result of what happens when you don't have that housing and support available for people. And so I think about how this interrelates to so many of the other conversations that we're having. And our ask at the legislature is clear. We don't want to see people left with nowhere else to sleep in on a train. We don't want to see them wandering around outside with nowhere to go, but we need help on the capacity side to be able to continue to support that. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but in a nutshell, that's the work, and there's a lot of folks here behind who have done a lot to make that happen.
I think the important piece too to highlight is that what we learned during COVID when we had resources is that we were able to change our model from the 1980s shelter model that quite frankly doesn't work. There's a 3% success rate if you end up in a shelter system to ever get housing. 3% under the existing model. And we were able to switch the model to say individual rooms with dignity and closed doors and time and space with. And we saw an increase of up to 60% success rate in a short amount of time. And so that's where we got this funding. This is how much we need to continue that model that we know works and is dignified and actually leads to permanent supportive housing. And folks that got housed during that time are still housed. We followed up with them. It's going really well. And so when we didn't get the money, we had to go back to the 1980s model and try to make it work. And what we're really trying to do is go to the model that we know works and we can demonstrate that. So if there's anywhere in the federal government that we can also do that, it would be really helpful to continue to deliver those services. We're about to do our point in time count, which often, HUD gets those numbers. That's coming up next week, I think, or the week after, so that we'll have some additional numbers and more of what it is. But we're looking really closely on how do we continue to move this work and change, because it really is, it bleeds over into everything else in our community, as you know. And I know we were on the phone a lot during COVID around how do we take care of the folks that are outside, and so we really appreciate your help.
Well, and I'll continue to do that, but for people that I have served with in Lane together for a long time, both married, being in the state legislature, and it's Ramsey County is doing the lion's share of the work in the East Metro. And that's not right, and it's not fair. And so I commend you for doing it, but this is a metropolitan problem, and we cannot, in my opinion, come up with all these good and great innovative ways of doing things and not expect our colleagues around the East Metro to be doing the same thing in the West Metro. And whether that is indigent care that we still absorb at it used to be the Ramsey County Hospital. You guys kept that up when it got changed over to group health, and it's been reconstituted in other healthcare models since then. We still are paying the tab, and they still refuse to do this. And I represent part of Washington County too. I have the same conversations with the Washington, Dakota, Anoka, Washington, and even Hennepin to a point. This is not, this is a problem that you didn't say, I'm walking away from. You embraced it. The one area that the federal government didn't do on homelessness that really upset me greatly is I spend a lot of time working on homeless youth. And back in the day, the community projects got windows and replacements and that for what Lutheran Social Service. Midway area, there was no increase on that for federal money, which is huge, because that's where, if we can address somebody who's in an unsafe situation safely, or somebody who's having a mental health crisis and the family doesn't know how to do it, catch that earlier on. It's just a magnifying effect to having better outcomes for that individual as well as our community. So, worked a lot on homeless youth and that. Well, some of you were when we were at the Indian Native American Center doing that. So, anything that I can do to help you nationally increase the dollars going in. I also had a conversation with Fairview about the mental health facility down here. This mental health facility, needs to be a shining bright example and pilot project, so the city of St. Paul and Ramsey County and the East Metro is excited about what's going on there, and I expect to work with you to hold Fairview accountable to that.
Well, we're in alignment there. We've worked really hard to make sure that we have access points
Because
to
we
for
are
our
starting to
community.
have a concentration
Mhm.
in one area
Yeah.
of doing great things for people who have great challenges in their life.
Mhm.
But this cannot become, this is where everybody's gonna go, because we can't absorb everyone. And so everybody has a role in this, and your role in this has been exemplary, and it's been unique, and it's been innovative, and I'm very
One other area, and I'll let the commissioners jump in, if there's other things, but that I really want to highlight as well is we're working on, we've talked a lot about, connectivity for the internet to rural areas, but we want to highlight that the need is everywhere, and to include in Ramsey County. We recently had a really in-depth workshop around digital equity, and what does that really mean, and who has not just the wires, but what else is there, like the affordability, and you may or may not know, but data plans that are affordable have less data available. And so if we have large families that are using the internet when kids are in school, they're trying to do jobs, look for work,
I experienced that on
Right.
Zoom calls
Right.
with people right here in Ramsey County and Washington
Oh, yeah.
County. I could tell when the kids went on.
Right, exactly. And so, and what also happens is that the systems, the people who provide internet service are actually slowing down the speeds in certain neighborhoods. And interestingly enough, in Ramsey County, our redlining map overlays with the same connectivity issues. So this is really about racial access too, and as we think about what does equity look like, in digital equity. And so we are, and it's in our platform, it's one of the few items on our federal legislative that we are actively pursuing support and funding from the federal government to make sure that we're talking about urban areas as well and not just the rural. But certainly want to open that up to other commissioners as it's kind of fresh and a hot topic on our minds. Yeah.
I just want to say, I like the way you phrased it at a board meeting. It's a poverty issue more
It is.
than it's a race issue.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Because it's across the board.
Mhm.
Well, it affects seniors as well.
Exactly.
So,
It's,
I look at what's going on with cable, which is a lot of competition, so they're trying to keep their, it's about people trying to keep their profit model somewhere at the same. I would be interested if the county puts together the overlay with the map and that, and you're gonna go to one of the commissions to send me a letter, and I would be happy to forward it to whatever subdivision was in the commission. Ask for a response, and if they're gonna look into it.
That'd be great. Because it really is if we think about, it's the workforce of the future. If we want our residents to thrive, they're gonna have to have access. And now you can't even get a job or apply for a job if you don't have access, right? And so it's just a layered effect. I actually think that we should consider it being a utility, just like we don't turn the heat off in the winter months. Because if you don't have internet access today, you can't go to the doctor, you can't make a doctor's appointment. And so to think about what that does and who we're holding back when we.
So the healthcare component of it also has the digital access, but it also has having the equipment in the community.
Exactly.
Some of the better cameras, I've had the opportunities to be in these sort of remote areas, so but I know it works the same thing as if it's looking in a camera. You have the camera on your cell phone, that'll work to do it, but it also needs to be a two-way communication on that. So, yeah, well, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that.
Lisa, could I just
Yes,
add
please
something
do.
to that?
Please do.
First of all, the staff is just beginning work on this, and there's more to come, so just got a very preliminary report. But this is also, with the workforce development and so forth, and people working from home and opportunities there. It becomes even more, it isn't just about owning a laptop. You know, we have programs that give away laptops, that's great, but you don't have the capacity, the service to do it, perform a job maybe. And we have a lot of dead spots, dead zones. So there's a lot to this that I'm just learning about. I was surprised by the presentation by the staff, how intricate this could become. It isn't just about the hardware.
Oh, yeah. So I would, I'd be interested, in your report where you have, library stations, where we have rec stations, like what we're working on together on Main Street, whether or not you're seeing slow down, drop off there, or because you're the customer, it doesn't.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you. Congresswoman McCollum, it's great to see you again. I'll just give you an example, because I love how you ask us for actual examples. And tell a really great picture, but in the library, our Ramsey County Library in Roseville, I think they actually get some good reception, but the people around it don't, and so we've had to put our modems next to the walls so that people can come to our parking lots. You know, when our libraries are closed, we can't keep our libraries open 24 hours. So they just put the modem near the wall so people can come and sit in our parking lot and use them. And, you know, otherwise they're going to McDonald's or other places, but at least this is, you know, they can do this at other hours than we're having our libraries open. I mean, this is how, you know, tragic it is, the service, that, you know, we do have these spots where people, you know, can't get service, and so then they have to use our public facilities.
There's can't get service, can't afford service,
Yep.
and then slow service.
Yeah, exactly, and it's any of those, exactly.
Well, and then there's one other issue is that, oftentimes with service providers, and so if someone is late payment, they then get it marked on their credit agency, and now we're perpetrating continuation of bad credit, especially among our poorest community. And so if you think about if you miss a payment on your cell phone or a cable bill, it's often the first ones that report to credit. And you have to have credit in order to get a certain speed of service. It's a problem. It's a really big problem that as we unpeel, and many of those service providers will tell you, we have this great program for low income folks.
Oh, yeah,
But
they're in my office.
and they're, you know, it's, of course, you have to prove that you're eligible, and then you have to maintain eligibility. And the part they're not sharing is it's at a lower bandwidth and it slows you down. So this is something that we continue to work on, from our aspect, but any assistance as you're thinking about or asking those questions in committees and hearings would be helpful for us. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. On a broad level, I just wanted to make sure, if you step up at the balcony across the entire legislative priorities, the other piece to mention is, we know that the need during COVID in so many ways increased for families and neighborhoods and communities. Right, resilience was tested, and so we've seen the limits of that in terms of what it means. And in a state in which, you know, county administered services are a part of our fabric, the county has seen that demand and that uptick. I mean, I believe it's our emergency assistance applications are up 120% in the last 2 years, to give a sense of scope. I mean, significant increases. You started today by mentioning the surplus at the state, and that's great. And that is really great, except it accrued at the income tax level. It does not trickle down to where the need is being most felt by the agencies that have to provide the service. So part of our conversation with our state partners right now is we're seeing increased demand with no increase in the revenue. You're sitting on the big surplus right now, and you want to do a lot at the state, but we need to see how that plays here. But this dynamic right now of there are sometimes surpluses that have accrued because income taxes during COVID allowed for this to occur in different ways. Counties are on the opposite end of that. We're facing really scary back-end catch-up bills to pay for what we built up during COVID. And cities would be in the same boat, right, on the local government side. And so any conversations around local revenue right now are significant. And for us, what that really means, we're happy to tell these stories, are putting that money directly into the places in which you're combating economic disadvantage. And I wanted to cite that Brookings had, we've been a case study for Brookings during ARPA spend. Ramsey County, Detroit, St. Paul, and Cleveland are some of the communities that they looked at. We can make sure you guys see this. But they've been measuring how much of the money you received did you put into programs to directly combat economic disadvantage. And by their count, Ramsey County was at 95% of money in through the ARPA funds went directly into those buckets because of the priorities that the board set. And the other three entities, it was 69%, 40%, and 12% at the time. And we're really proud of that story. On the back end, the scary part is if what happens is that money goes away if we don't figure out what that partnership looks like. And so I just, at a really broad level, as you look across so many of our areas, as we've gotten stronger at serving and putting that money directly out the door into the areas of greatest need, that's been a really good thing. But we're at the same time very worried on what it means in the coming years. And I wanted to highlight that as an example of a place where we need help in the coming years. And if you want examples of how local governments have put money directly on the ground into the places of greatest need, we have some really good stories.
Yeah, that's a great illustration that as we're coming out of COVID and as the economy up, we also started experiencing inflation, right? You know, cost of housing and a whole lot of things. So the ARPA funds were a snapshot in time for what it cost at that time to provide some of those services in particular that I don't want to see go away, but it's going to be a pull as you're trying to make everything happen. And as the federal government, I think, will fail to live up to its responsibility as in public. So some of the instruments that we put back into public health that never should have been taken. You know, it's like the fire department. You know, they have a lot of great equipment. You hope that they never use it, but you want the equipment to be there. People get that because they understand their house burning down, but it took a pandemic for people to understand that we need public health, you know, workers, and we need to be able to talk to hospitals and doctors and flex things out and everything like that. And I'm really concerned that we're going to see that go away. And that was a conversation I had with the state legislators, that as you're looking at things, you can, you know, ease up on wants to talk about fossil fuels, but I'm going to, you can ease up your foot on the accelerator, let's say accelerator, because then it could be battery powered. The accelerator a little bit, but you don't want to slam on the brake yet. Nor should you slam on the brake because, you know, another pandemic, I mean, we've been through all kinds of things. You know, flu still is a problem, COVID, meningitis sometimes in certain parts of the state has flared up. So there's, you know, and you deliver those services.
I can tell you our public health staff.
Yeah, they're beaming, right?
And they appreciate you raising that because they've worked really, really hard.
But I am. I'm really, really concerned about that. I really am. And it's a workforce thing. And for all of those of you, I mean, we were pretty lucky in Minnesota and in Ramsey County for your coworkers across the country who were verbally abused and physically threatened. Yeah. Thank you for doing the job that you do.
Yeah.
Well, point. So, you know, now that, you know, we've got a different group out in Congress, what do you think about your member appropriated?
Okay. Okay. So I brought those.
Do you want to talk us through like what does that look like?
I brought the short sheet. So, and I'll just talk about a couple of things that we did to give you the examples and things. And I think almost everything on this sheet is probably going to be okay. So we have the Neighborhood Development Center where, you know, we work with the BIPOC businesses to create opportunities. We're also working on a cybersecurity thing with Metro State and with NDCEA. We had the Twin Cities creative placemaking for the arts and creative businesses to develop in St. Paul. I think that might be in a little bit of trouble because we're going to, they say they're still going to do some community directed, I call it earmarks. Why? Because you earmark the page in the budget where it is, right? You earmark where it is, right?
Right.
So you can keep track of it. Right now, they're saying no money to museums. This is what they did when we were doing the Great Economic Recovery from the Great Recession. They said no museums, no arts, they were very fussy about what environmental programs we did, and then, no aquariums and no zoos.
Mm.
So, all those are parts of our communities, but I think that there might be a list of things that they're not going to allow to happen. The National Institute of Minnesota, where we did some workforce training and an addition on there, St. Catherine's, where we worked on STEM education, a lot of things that you do, and also addressing, people who are not often, really embraced to go into some of these fields, of reaching out to them saying, we're going to give you the tools in your toolbox so you can do this. The pathways to apprentices, and then even the Bruce Ventral trails. I mean, my heavens, our trails during COVID, our city parks, you couldn't even get in a parking lot. You couldn't even park a mile away from a park to get in a park to go on a mile hike. So all those things are really important. And then the violence prevention and the things that we did, including St. Paul Police getting their radio replacement up so that they can talk with, all the other folks. So I think it's going to be there. How much money we're going to have to spend on them, we don't know yet. We probably won't have as much money to do things for and with, but I think some of I'll give an example of something that I think, just because of the names, like if I was submitting the Penumbra Theater request that I had right now, which was to do youth engagement on race and racism and positive feelings about oneself, the fact that it had the word in theater in it might have been just a cast aside, not funding that. So I think we have our work to do. You folks did a great job on everything we asked you to do, dotting the T's, crossing the I's. So we'll be reaching out again when we get the full guidelines, and then it's probably going to be a short turnaround, but I know you have a lot of pent-up needs where we can do this. I mean, it's our responsibility as members of Congress to distribute tax dollars. And so when we aren't doing things like this back in our community, we are giving it to administrators in the executive branch to do it. Now, I'm not going to speak ill of any of those public federal employees, but they get inundated with things, and they're trying to figure out how things fit. I think you and I together, working with the cities and the counties and some of our nonprofits, we know the needs in our communities. And so it is proper that we take some of those tax dollars, especially with Minnesota being a donor state, and bring them back directly to our communities so they can see those dollars in action serving them.
Thank you. You've done a really good job of that. I think
Well, you've done a really good job of giving me great projects.
Well, we appreciate that, and I often talk about this, and I know we've had this conversation, but your work on defense appropriations and the amount of money that you are actually able to bring to Minnesota, in a state that doesn't have an active duty base, is really impressive, and to Ramsey County, and so I just want to thank you again for that.
There's a lot of jobs, there's a lot of research being done on energy, on climate change, on recycling, all those things that are out there that's part of what the DOD does. And you folks are leaders in it. Why shouldn't you show the Department of Defense how to do it better, cheaper, and get better results?
Yeah.
So I'm all for you showing the DOD the way.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Mary Jo, yes.
I don't know when we're gonna get, I just wanna make sure that I get to, just say thank you so much for your leadership in really supporting us as counties. You are a champion, as we could all see by just your remarks today. And I was lucky to be out in Washington, as you know, last week, visiting our entire congressional delegation. You were our favorite meeting. You were our best meeting. You were, yeah, really. We won't, right, we won't, yeah, we don't want to, we don't
I'm the only one who has Ramsey County. Some of them have split counties, so.
I know.
Tell them they loved you
I know,
all.
we loved everyone, but you were you totally, of course, embrace the issues that we know and care about, and you were just they said we walked out of the room, and we were there with, a person from rural Minnesota, and we were representing the whole Association of Minnesota Counties. So we talk about issues that supported us, but they walked out and they go, wow, she is on task. You were like, okay, what should we do with this? How should we do this? What can we do about this? And they could tell We all know that you got it, that you think of us as partners, which we really appreciate. And you were, so, supportive of the fact that we do public health, that we do health in our jails, and that's what one of our big issues that we were talking about. It is on our platform. You'll see here, this is what AMC was bringing mostly to them, was our medical services for our incarcerated individuals. And, I just, couldn't be more grateful at how you really are a champion for all of us here in Ramsey County. And as we all know, you know, in my new leadership positions at the state and federal level, I want to help work with you on the things that you care about. And I know the Mississippi River Restoration Project is a key one for all of us. And so I want to continue to find out any ways that all of us can help work on that, up and down the Mississippi River.
Maybe just before we leave, I'll have Josh kind of give you an update.
Yeah, let's get an update on that, because I know this whole table cares about it, and we have colleagues throughout the country and the state, that live along the Mississippi and can help with that as well. But,
NACO has
and NACO has it in their platform.
Mary Jo, of course, is coming in as president in July.
And so we want to just, work with you as a board, and obviously, whatever I can do in my positions to bring, I said, I want to make this, maximize this opportunity for Ramsey County, because what's good for Ramsey County, I think, is good for our state and good for our country. And, that's the goal here with these leadership positions. So look forward to working with your office, because as I said, I can say it, I have the best county board in the state and the country, and I have the best congresswoman in office in the country, so thank you for that.
And you're lucky to have Rena now.
I know, and we have Rena too, right?
Great thing.
Exactly, so we're really lucky. Yeah.
The account.
That's it.
So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bryant. And on that note, I want to also give our new commissioners to this board an opportunity to just say something, so,
Yes. Thank you. Congresswoman, as you know, in our district here, in District 6, we're very young, 60% under the age of 35, and also median household income is $50,000. So it's one of the few places that is actually affordable, and we have half homeowners, half renters. So it just means that, like, looking to the future, we need to make sure that, we continue to invest in affordable housing. So everything that Ryan was talking about, yes, I was nodding my head big time, because that's what we need to do. But locally and at the state level, it's not even enough. Like, it's not even enough to, like, make sure that housing continues to be affordable, and that make it accessible. And what we talk about, the connections between transit and housing, we need, like, the model should be like just housing first. Like, we should just be housing people. And I would just encourage, continued partnership in that and strengthening it with however you need support. The other part is when we talk about pathways to, I really appreciate this, the pathways to, like, inequity to access to, like, for housing, for jobs, for workforce development, is that young people and young people of color do want to get into different professions, or professions that pay livable wages and good benefits, right? And we need to continue to support that pipeline. And earlier, we just had a workshop about the workforce development, about public service. It's like, how can we expand it? And I think we have learned a lot from our ARPA funds, too, about where we put in those investments. But how can we continue to sustain that? And looking more support from you would be so much appreciated. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Moran.
Well, because I know the numbers. Because I know what it means to be in majority versus minority. I won't do an X, but that's okay. But I would like.
Strong suggestion.
Right, yeah. A realistic answer. But I would say how thankful I am that you are back to help in Washington, D.C. for what you know is needed here in the state of Minnesota, here in Ramsey County. We are fortunate enough to have you with your experience and expertise and your relationship that you bring, that even in the midst of those hard moments and dark moments and, a legislature that's going to be very dysfunctional, that you will bring a leadership style and connection that is needed in the midst of all of that. So I'm just really excited to have you there and excited that we have a great partnership with you here in Ramsey County, and just look forward to building on that.
I think you set Nicole up to ask me for the really hard.
Yeah.
All right.
No, Nicole gets the
Okay, I'm ready, I'm ready, Nicole. Bring it.
So this is not something our board has had a conversation about yet, at least not for a while, but I wanted to throw out there that I am really hopeful and excited that we will see some movement on our Rice Creek Commons development in Arden Hills. And, I think there are still some remaining questions, but one of the next steps that we have to do to move forward is a regrading of the soil. And it's possible that in that process, we'll find hotspots of continued contamination. But because the project has been delayed, we might not be able to utilize warranties from the folks that initially did the cleaning, and then that would put additional costs on us. And this is, once again, not pollution we created, it was pollution the federal government created. The other piece of that is in the work that I've been doing since coming on the board and engaging with community and talking to them about this project and their hopes and dreams, the one thing that's been really clear from the community that gets them excited about this project is the opportunity to build a cutting-edge climate-forward development. And part of doing that, some of the ways in which we could do that would be utilizing some of the infrastructure that's already on the site to clean the groundwater through geothermal. But of course, that requires us to have conversations and agreements with the federal government and the Army site running it to make sure that that's going to continue to run to power the site. So with your work at the federal level, you as a partner to help us move forward on that, if we're able to get something going, really appreciate, because this is an opportunity to move forward that I don't know that we've had for a while, and we've got new folks involved, like myself, that are really excited about the potential, and we want to take advantage of this opportunity to help us meet climate needs, those housing needs that we've been talking about throughout, and to continue to be the model in all aspects in what we do here at Ramsey County. And look at and say, wow, you turned a super fun site to the most climate-forward development in the country. That for me is the goal.
That's interesting, and the contracts with the city, not with the county, on the water. And, or Jerry Evans.
Yes, I do. Sorry. Yes, we all do, no.
So, yeah, we've been going through this for quite a while. The last time the contract was, I had attorneys from the Army sitting around the table telling me that they couldn't do things, doing them, not necessarily because of me, but because of that. So we'll have to look, that's not, if you're thinking of doing something in the future, I'd say, how much longer that contract's for in New Brighton?
Well, there's the New Brighton side, but then there's the treatment.
Right.
The New Brighton, I'm not sure where they are in
I think that's all kind of like,
That's a good question on New Brighton. I mean, there's Arden Hills, but New Brighton, yeah.
I don't know if those two things are linked in
the Rice Creek
altogether.
Commons is a separate system.
It's a separate system, it's not.
And it
Okay.
actually gets
All
recharged,
right.
goes back into the recharge. flow.
Recharged into the everything,
So it's
so,
essentially
right.
an open loop.
But you have
But
all
New
the,
Brighton's a closed loop.
yeah.
Well, they're treating it and using
Yeah,
it.
but then they take what's back. So I don't know if so I'd have to look into it, because I don't know if they're running the system the same way as they are going to do New Brighton system, if they're going to want to have two different contracts out there.
We've had a run at this, once before, I know, and
But that doesn't mean,
we can't.
that doesn't mean
Okay,
it can't happen.
It's been a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try it again, right?
Your issue about the hotspots, that again, with the transfer over, the county assumes in the Army and GSA where they would be on that, but that doesn't mean we can't look if you discover that. Hopefully the cleanup was done well enough that they're not going to find anything, or if they do, it's fairly minuscule. I had them clean up to a higher standard
Yeah.
than what they were originally gonna
This
do.
is something one of the other folks involved in the project was concerned that this could happen. So I don't know how
Yeah.
viable it is.
No,
It's like, okay,
originally
well,
they were
if it
only
does.
gonna clean up to an industrial standard, remember that? And I made them, I can honestly say this, I mean, I didn't pass a piece of legislation, so my name's not out there anyplace that I passed this, but
Thank you.
I made them clean up to a higher standard because we were looking at putting, you guys were looking at putting houses in there. And they didn't want to do it because of the precedent that was set. And then the other place where we had it, we got them to increase the standard around Lake. We work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and everything like that. So I appreciate that, the fact that you guys know it isn't in how many bills I pass, it's on the stuff I get done for you. But, so we've had a couple of go-arounds. They don't like it when we start monkeying around with things, so I don't know if the contracts for Rice Street Commons are gonna be identical to what they are for New Brighton. I mean, there's two different kind of filtration systems, I get that, but they kind of wanna, you can take a look.
I think there's a lot of questions, so that it's more of, if we find something, if there's a way, we want to keep you apprised of this process, and, any assistance you could do to make this the best development and the opportunity that we have, if we're able to move something forward, and we're just, there's questions we have, or we need, more conversations, any assistance your office can provide to make those connections for us.
Yeah, I mean, we can make inquiries, but I know in just dealing with stuff with New Brighton, that was a real heartache, and we dealt with them on the cleanup for Rice Creek Commons, and then we dealt with them on getting the land returned, the land itself, and then also getting Rice Creek open with between them and the Park Service. So we've dealt with them a lot for the past 22 years, and it can be rather difficult. And that's why I brought up New Brighton, because this last go-around we worked on it, for 9 months?
It's the better part of a year.
Well,
And
to be really fair, I don't get extra staff to do any of that.
No.
Yeah.
And so our staff takes it on top of everything else that they're doing, and then I have to be reliant on no one will speak, the Library of Congress will help do research, but their attorneys won't speak on my behalf to say that they're giving me legal advice. And so the Army Corps doesn't give me legal advice either, they just tell me what they can't do, and I say, well, are you sure? So, yeah, let's look into it. I knew you'd save the hardest for last.
I know. Yeah.
Well, we want to be respectful of your time. We know how busy you are, and really appreciate you coming here and visiting with us and continuing to be our champion in Washington. We're very glad that you're there representing us, and we want to be a resource here. So we have stories, we have connection to community, we have a lot of projects and a lot of need that we're happy to share anytime.
And we'll try to give you a heads up for the stories, but your staff has been really good turning on short notice. But I don't know when the bill's gonna come to the floor. I don't know what the amendment's gonna look like. Sometimes, we find out Friday night, that this bill's gonna be on the floor, something's gonna happen, Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can't make it happen, but you've always been great at trying to make it happen, so thank you.
On that point of specificity, because it's always a challenge we all face, is wanting to be responsive and pulling together. If you mentioned earlier the criteria of what's likely not gonna be allowed, even as we can start to rule out pieces of imagination in our head, that's
That's
super
why I
helpful.
mentioned what I did, but I don't know if they're gonna be there or
Okay, you're
not.
just guessing because of.
I'm just guessing, but I'm like, so when you're looking at your list and you're doing your priorities, there might be some things you don't wanna put a lot of staff time in prioritizing right away, but don't take them off yet.
Okay,
Like even Como Zoo was geothermal water.
Right.
So even though it had the word zoo in it, I might have been able to go in and punch hard if they decide no zoos. Penumbra, it was the nonprofit running a youth program.
Right.
So, but I don't know when they sort through, because I was in the majority. When we sort through and we look at things, we have to make decisions, because there's only so much money.
Right.
And the majority might, even though they might think it's a well-intentioned project, they might not want to have to be arguing it up with the other Republicans either.
Thank
Do we want to hear about Mississippi Restoration, or do you want to wait on that? I mean, if time,
I can briefly.
only if you have time, I mean,
Briefly
right,
give us the
you had
play.
mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, and this has been a tremendous partnership with Ramsey County specifically, but the counties in Minnesota especially, because it's an important source of clean drinking water for, Minnesotans, but 20 million Americans really rely on this. And that's the crux of MIRI. We have to reintroduce this bill. And we, you know, to move it, it needs to have partisan support, and that's been hurdle last Congress, it'll be a hurdle this Congress, but going to look at options and look at it, potentially right there too. But I think the counties really have a unique kind of leverage here because you represent communities up and down, and it's going to make a big difference for counties, for tribal governments, and for cities with their quality of their water that they're. You start with water, then everything else comes. You have the add benefits, habitats, and green infrastructure, and all.
Transportation was large.
And transportation, you know, the quality of water, and less sedimentation in the water helps for river services, getting goods to market. There's benefits on all that, on those levels, and so I guess the big headline will be, we are looking at March doing a Mississippi River Summit here in Minnesota.
Great.
Pull the voices together to talk. Resource is to all of us. Here, the head of navigation in St. Paul, really important. So many different ways. Drinking water probably the most important, but all these other issues that we talked about.
So, and this is something that, whether it's 20 years working on PCAP, which is now Rice Creek Commons, I worked on a food security bill for, you know, about 10 years, just got it reauthorized for another 5 years. There's things that it took us a while to get the post office to get everything that we did down at Union. But Mary, if the Great Lakes didn't happen in 1 term or 2 terms, it's going to take a while. So I'm willing to put the resources to keep talking about it, to keep the drumbeat going, to move forward on it, knowing that it's probably not going to pass. It's just like the boundary waters. You just don't walk away from things. You just do the hard work, and you set yourself up for success in the future. So thank you, and thank you, Mary Jo, and Victoria, and all of you who are in my office and heard and just ran to the meeting and got it on the agenda. Thank you.
Did it fast. And it's Mississippi River Restoration and
Resilience.
Resilience, MIRI. That's for all of you that are listening. Yeah.
I'll tell you, the staff worked on that. I was like, I don't care. They were like, no, we need something really good.
Well, thank you for your time. Before we go, we're gonna take a picture, if you
Sure.
don't mind, and Rose can come here to take our photo.
Okay.
Wow.
Where do you like to take it?
Or type, or do you kind of go against?
No, you probably all will.
There's a around if you want.
Blend in with the environment.
Fair question, but I have no answer.
Okay.
No, it's kind of make you don't know.